What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the Value TV show, where we give you tools to build and have healthy relationships. That's right, tools to build and have healthy relationships. I am Jamel Jackson, your relationship mechanic, and today we have an episode where my guests come on and they ask me several questions centered around relationships. And today I have no other than the amazing Mrs. Arnesjah.
Hey, Jamel.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful.
I ain't seen you in a minute.
I know, it's been a while.
How you been?
I've been great, alive and well.
What are you up to these days?
Well, right now I am into the life coaching field and working on another book. So everything is centered around identity, helping you to live in the best version of yourself, understanding who you are and what you do, and why is that important for you to fulfill God's will and live in your purpose.
Okay. Now, before we dive into these questions that you do have, I want you to expound a little more. You're an author, yes. You're a coach, but tell them about these books.
Yes, so I really dove into becoming an author on my second book, I Am Chosen. And that book is a major life-changing book for entrepreneurs who, whether you've lost your job or you're looking to dive into entrepreneurship, but the most important thing is for you to understand your God-given identity. Oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we can get lost in the hustle and bustle of entrepreneurship. We can end up losing our own identity if we don't have a firm foundation in who we are, being tossed to and fro with opinions of men. So it's important for you to meditate on God's word, but also fill your spirit with the foundation of God inside of you as you're on your entrepreneurial journey. So that was my major takeoff. And of course, you helped me out with getting it out there and helping me to sell it. So since then, I'm going to make authorship my thing. I'm the author and I'm the one that's going to help people with their identity, being that I've been through a few things when it comes to living in my purpose, experiencing imposter syndrome, experiencing a lot of fear, self-sabotage. So I found that since many entrepreneurs deal with self-sabotage unknowingly, and it's something I've experienced, I'm more so expounding on that topic when it comes to entrepreneurs and who are faithpreneurs as well.
Awesome. So, like I told you guys, this is the episode where my guest asked me several questions centered around relationship, and I know you brought a truckload.
I did. I have a few questions from some of my friends. So,
okay.
Yes, they were pretty interested in some things about relationships, dating life, friendships. So I actually want to start something off that's popular.
Okay.
So I know one of the topics that's been blowing up lately is narcissism. And a lot of times, one of the things is I actually want to know, have you ever dated a narcissist?
No, I haven't. I've heard a lot, in my line of work, I run across a lot of men and women, and when I asked them, well, what happened? That seems to be the comment that everyone is, well, not everyone, a large majority of people are giving me. Mm-hmm. So no, I haven't had that.
You haven't?
No, reluctantly, thank God.
That's good. I guess that's a good thing. But one of the things that's a hot topic is narcissism. How do you know when someone is being narcissistic to you? Because from personal experience, I didn't understand it until I researched it. I'm how do you know how to break away from someone who may be controlling, manipulative, or even if they're just unconscious and unaware of their tendency to do such things? Mm-hmm. How do you pull away from that?
So what's your definition of being narcissistic?
Well, my definition of being narcissistic is someone who has a almost a prideful demeanor, and although you're telling them, hey, this is this is out of order for me, or I feel like you're not respecting my boundaries, but they're still oh, forget your boundaries. Or maybe they say, I respect your boundaries, but they still overstep it anyways. Or if you have an opinion and they overtop your opinion, and they're constantly, putting their opinion on top of yours. They're being a little bit, or they can be a little bit controlling or manipulative, but even though you're addressing these things, they're still not taking you into consideration.
We need to understand how much power we have, and especially women. You guys have a lot of power, and one of the words that you mentioned was the word boundaries. Mm-hmm. So when boundaries are to keep certain things in and to keep certain things, out. They'll keep things from getting in and keep certain things from getting out. So when these boundaries are set, then it's a matter of, am I going to stand on my boundary? So let's just say you have this narcissistic guy and he continues to be manipulative, controlling. Now it's a matter of, when I identify this, am I going to continue to tolerate it? Because people only can do what you allow them to do. And of course, sometimes our heart and our feelings and our emotions are involved. It's like, oh, I care for this person. I love this person. Maybe he'll change. Let me just give him another month, another 3 months, another 6 months. Maybe he'll change within a year. Maybe he doesn't identify. And I'm just gonna say it. Women have to stop trying to fix men. Because sometimes you can identify this issue and now you become the fixer, the fixer-upper. Like, I know he's a narcissist, but I can change that. Now, here's the thing. There are things that you may be able to assist this man with, but if you identify it, then it's a matter of how long are you going to tolerate it, because you can't fix him. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you point this out, that's what I always say this, we're all broken in some type of shape, form, or fashion. Now, when this person becomes aware of their brokenness, now it's a matter of, what are you going to do with it? Because even though we know we're broken in a particular area, if you ignore your brokenness, if you ignore that you're a narcissist, and then you identify that that is a trait that you have, and now you're like, well, that's just the way I am. Now you have to make a decision, okay, this person knows it. They don't want to do anything about it. Them continuing to stay that way can prohibit me from reaching my destiny. Now, not only am I carrying your weight, but I'm carrying my weight. And so now as I'm moving through life, it becomes frustrating. We're hard to get along with. And then really you're winning and I'm losing. So if there is a woman in that position, I would say, set your boundaries, set your standard, stand on it. Am I saying throw the man away? No, but let's identify this. And once we come to a mutual agreement, like, hey, here's an area where I feel impacted, and here's an area where I feel that is detrimental to our relationship, and we come to an agreement and we say, you know what? He says, you know what? I see that. I'm sorry, I didn't even know it. Now, if you're not willing to do anything after we've identified it, it may be time for you to make a nice, gentle exit. But most women stay in those situations because they care so much and they believe, you know what I can do? I can fix him. I'll make him how I want him to be. I'll make him non-narcissistic. And it never changes. No, person has to be willing and able.
Yes, I love how you just explained that. It's so true, because we as women, we're natural nurturers, and we have the tendency to want to help people, and especially if you're empathic like me, I'm always wanting to help people. So it's really challenging for us to get out of those situations, because we oftentimes relent to, oh, I think I should just still be loving to him, or maybe it's not love to just walk away. Because one of my friends even expressed to me, like, how do you stand, and this is a question for you, like, how do you know, she said, how do you overcome being loyal to people that you know does not serve God's best interest in your life?
You have to love them. The key word in this, and the answer to that question is love. How do you overcome being loyal to someone that you know is detrimental to basically your future? So the person's being disloyal. If the person continues to be disloyal, you don't have to be loyal to them. Now, what you do have to be is loyal to God and continue to love them. And you don't have to love them in the sense of, oh, we're hooking up every weekend because I just love them and I don't want to, you know, even though they did me wrong and they were disloyal. No, you can love them from a distance. I can see you and casually speak to you. Hey, how you doing? Because I love you. I love you in terms of as a human. I don't love you in terms of you being my partner. And we don't necessarily have to be friends. Depending on the dynamics of the relationship. You know, if the person, some people were married, some people have a more in-depth history with the person. But in terms of overcoming that, it's gonna require love. First, the love for yourself. Do you love yourself enough not to put that person in position to dictate how you feel when you wake up every morning? Like, oh my God, now it becomes appeasement. And now you're aiming to please this person. that's not really setting you free. It's just an upgraded prison.
Yeah, and I think just to expound on that too is for someone, because there's different attachment styles. So for knowing that, you know, you may have an attachment where you are wanting to just be with this person, even though you know like this person doesn't serve your purpose, they don't serve like a particular area of your life, but they're just there, they're in your life just to satisfy a temporary pleasure. Like how do you break away from that?
One, we got to define what that pleasure is. Because once again, some people can be in our lives for a purpose, and we got to define what that pleasure, what that purpose is, and what is this pleasure they're fulfilling. It may be a pleasure that is detrimental to our future. Let's say the pleasure is an emotional pleasure, but that emotional pleasure can lead to a sexual pleasure. And now this person's in my life, yeah, they're giving me pleasure, but it doesn't benefit my purpose. There's a lot of people that you can have in your life that can fulfill certain purposes in your life. It doesn't have to be a man, you know? I think sometimes, and it's understandable because you're a woman. And then there's men, but let's just specifically talk about the woman. You're a woman, you get alone, you know, you're like, man, I want a man. Even if you're a woman of God, I want a man. I don't want to be alone. I got desires that I need filled. And it may not even be sexual. It may be just emotional. Like, I want a guy in my presence. I want to hear this manly voice talking to me. And it makes me feel good. And we're not even doing nothing intimately in terms of sex, but it's just emotionally, mentally, I feel great when I'm around them. But is it fulfilling to my purpose?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Or is this person in my life hindering me? Because one, this is what I was in meditation yesterday. This is good for your question. The light is just as much as a distraction as the darkness. So there's good light, there's healthy light, and then there's also negative light. And it can be just as much a distraction as the darkness. So the man may have good intentions, but we have to use discernment and intuition to know, okay, during this time period of my life, is this a good distraction? You know, because this could be distracting me from my purpose. It says Satan disguises himself as the angel of light. So darkness could disguise itself as light, and we go, oh my God, wow, this is amazing. This fits my purpose. He just fits my purpose. It fulfills everything. This is where discernment is definitely needed. Right. And boundaries are needed, because boundaries can help you establish a stronger discernment. Like, okay, you know what? It's a great light, but it's not healthy. And sometimes we always think the distraction is going to be something negative or something dark. Like, oh man, he tried to touch my arm, so this can't be part of my purpose. No, it could be somebody that doesn't touch your arm or doesn't violate your boundaries, and that could be a distraction.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, like, you know, distractions are something that you kind of entertain. You know, it's like if you're entertaining something and you know that it's leading you down a loophole of more and more problems, like, it becomes a distraction. And also too, because I know you said something about intimacy, what are some different forms of intimacy that are non-sexual?
Before I answer that question, let me go back to the one the one you gave me. I want to quote the great Dr. Miles Monroe. He said, women and men, their purposes should complement each other. Yeah. So I want to use that statement that he made. When that thing is complimenting you and complimenting your purpose and complimenting your destiny and how you're moving forward, excuse me, then that's already a sign like, this may be someone that I can have in my life. Yeah. Because what they bring into my life, what they bring to the table is complimenting what I'm doing, what I'm pursuing. It's not having me go off the path of my purpose. Yeah. The question, what was that one you just asked?
What are some forms of intimacy that are non-sexual?
People can have intimate conversations, and it doesn't have to be a conversation. Once again, sometimes we hear the word intimate or intimacy and we think sexual. Right, right. But you can have an intimate conversation with the opposite sex about business. It's very intimate, it's very passionate, where we're talking about this particular subject or topic and we're intimate about it. You know, we can be watching a TV show and it's like, oh my God, we're both enlightened by this show. We love it. We both share the same, whatever that thing is, the value of this show. And we're like, man, we're getting very intimate and passionate, you know? And we're like, that's a form of intimacy. But we have to be aware that certain forms of intimacy can lead to infidelity, or it can lead to us becoming intimately sexual. Because emotions, that's one of the ones that lead down that path. But people can be mentally intimate. But then once again, when we have that form of intimacy, we have to still set boundaries, because it can easily lead into the other area. Somebody watching this or listening right now will say, no, that's not true. Yes and no, because it depends on how strong that person is. And no matter how strong you are, you have to use those boundaries and discernment. Because if let's say we're continually linking up with this person, and then my mental is being stimulated, my emotions are being stimulated, because the way we handle business together, the way we talk about this show together, and then eventually it can lead to something else. If we're not discerning or willing to identify, man, you know what, this is going a little too far. He's starting to make me feel hot. Every time I watch that show with him, I start feeling hot, and then all he got to do is just graze my hand.
Grace my hand. Listen, honestly, it's the smallest things that can take one step to another big step. And, I've learned that from my own experience. And just as a woman, I think it goes back to that nurturing, gullible, what is it? What's another word? We're very empathic at times and intuitive. And we feel like, it's okay to be in a man's space, and especially if we know we're weak in an area, we're like, oh, I got it. I always have this thing in my mind where I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z. And I have to set myself up in a sense where it's we don't go there. Don't go to his house. If you know you're going to go to the next level, and you weak, don't set yourself up in those environments that will lead it there. So I like that you described it that way. And also too, my other question is this, let
me say something before you ask that question. Once again, I want to highlight something my pastor spoke about. He said, we have to define the relationship, whether it's friendship, or whatever that relationship is with the opposite sex. We need to define it. In your case, we're talking about men. We need to define, what is this relationship? If we have no definition, then it can lead us anywhere. And this is what he said. He said, what Satan wants to do is have you fulfill. That desire you have, or women have, is legitimate. It's a legitimate desire to want to be with a man, to want to be passionate, to want to be intimate, to want to love, to want to incubate his vision and fulfill purpose together. It's legitimate. The enemy wants to have you fulfill a legitimate desire in an illegitimate way when there's no definition to the relationship. That's what I wanted to say.
I love that. Listen, I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I didn't understand the importance of defining a relationship until I kept failing in certain relationships. Why do I keep going down the rabbit hole of meeting guys, and they keep wanting, I'm thinking we just go hang out and chill. I'm gonna be honest with you, being a Christian, a super Christian at one point, I didn't understand how to date. You know what I'm saying? I didn't understand how to date until I got out and I got experience. And then I didn't realize that the whole going over somebody's house is a sign that maybe they want to get intimate. Not with all men. I'm not going to say it's with all men, but certain, the men I was talking to and dating, meeting them online and then trying to hook up and we're just going to hang out at home. And then we try to go to the next level. And I'm like, why do I keep meeting men like this? It's because I feel like it's because I did not define the relationships and I didn't set the boundaries straight. And I like that you mentioned that it's important for us to define the relationship. And I think it also goes with discernment. What is this person in your life for? Are you here to pour into them, or are they here to pour into you? So that direction I feel like is important for us to talk about, because we don't understand how to define relationships. So how would you kind of give us an example?
Ask questions. Ask questions to yourself. What is this person here for? You might have to write it down, because as you're writing down, what is this person here for, you're discovering and creating definition for it. Why does this person like me so much? Why is this? What is this? How is this? Using those when, where, why, what is this? What's going on? Why? Then it creates definition that you say, okay, oh, this is what this relationship is. And you might not have an answer for the first question you write down. Why is this person in my life? Give it some time and start and have your eyes open. Let that intuition and that discernment lead you and say, okay, now I can answer that. And as I begin to answer these questions, I'll look and I go, oh, this is a definition of what this person is. You know, once again, I want to stress again, it's a legitimate desire. I don't want anybody listening or watching this to go, oh my God, so I can't feel for a man? No, it's legitimate. But like I said, the enemy wants you to fulfill a legitimate desire in an illegitimate way.
Yeah.
And once we give definition to it, then we can move forward a little better, you know?
Yep.
And don't force nothing. You know, I keep stressing this, women have so much power. So much power. We don't have to, you guys do not have to force your way into anything. When you're walking in your being and your purpose, and when you're walking in, when you know concrete, this is who I am. And of course, you're still discovering and evolving and becoming. But when I define who I am, then certain things don't even attract me. Certain things don't even appeal to my appetite.
Absolutely.
I would challenge women to ask men this question, because a lot of men don't have men in their lives. And I'm not just talking about a dad, but even a spiritual authority. Someone in their life that can pour into them wisdom and spirit and can pour into their soul. I would ask that man that, like, who's over your life? Or what man do you have that speaks influential things into your life? And it may be a dad, it may be an uncle, and say, okay, how close are you with that man? Because if a man has someone like that, then it goes to show that they have some accountability. Does it mean that that man's not going to be flawed? No. But it shows he has some accountability in his life. And most men, when you ask them that question, some of them don't have that. And if they don't have that, then that would be a sign like, okay, once again, that gives me definition. This man has no accountability in his life. Does it make him a bad man? No, but it lets me understand he doesn't have accountability. And what does that look like for a man that does not have accountability? He's liable to go any which way. And if I go on a journey with him, I'm flowing any which way.
Right. Oh, that's good. The men and women need accountability.
Yeah.
We all do. What advice do you have when it comes to closing a relationship or restoring a relationship?
What I've learned over time is that some relationships, you per se don't have to close it. And people that watch my show know I use biblical principles. I love it when, I don't know exactly where it is in scripture, but it talks about Jesus playing the role as the gardener and pruning the trees. You know, it says the gardener knows best. And sometimes if you just let things take its course, you won't even have to close it, or you won't even have to cut people off. They'll cut themselves off. They'll close the relationship. Now it's up to you when it's closed to keep it closed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when it's dead and the casket's closed, we want to open the casket back up and view the body again.
Right.
But it's dead. It offers no life. It's been already buried. And you didn't have to do it, but we like, oh no, I missed them so much. Let me dig them back up. Matter of fact, let me go through this. Where that old phone at? I had his number in that phone. And where's that old notebook? I know I wrote it down somewhere. Oh, I know it's in my car. And we digging it up.
Yeah.
And we dig it back up, even though it brings no life to us.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that definition.
Yeah.
Now you define it. It's been closed. It's dead.
Yeah.
When I see the person, I still speak casually to them. Now restoring it depends on what is the history of what are we restoring?
Right.
You know, it's girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wives. Let's speak about girlfriend and boyfriend. People do fall out. You know, I won't say like there's never breakups, but after the breakup, once again, now it's time to define what we had, and now if we do connect back again, what are we doing? You know?
Right, absolutely.
Because now we had a definition. We broke apart.
Yeah.
Now we're back to the drawing board, or you're back to the drawing board. Now I have to redefine. Because we weren't together.
Yeah.
We were together, we broke apart. Now we're about to connect again, possibly. I had to redefine. Because in the midst of me going through that breakup, there's a part of me that was lost, a part of you that was lost, and now we're separated for however long, whatever length of time it was. I got to redefine. I got to redefine me. I got to redefine you. I got to redefine us. Well, not redefine you. I got to redefine us. What are we restoring back? Because if it's not beneficial to who I am, who I have become after that breakup, then it's no need.
Yeah.
And we can't let our emotions get into it. Like, oh, he came crying back. and once again, forgiveness works. Here's the thing with this. Restoration is beautiful. Forgiveness is very powerful. But what I learned from even dealing with breakups and heartache is just because you forgive someone doesn't necessarily mean that we have to come back together.
Right.
People always think like, oh girl, you need to just forgive him and that was a great man and y'all could do it again. That's where you have to use your discernment. Is this restoration necessary for me? Maybe that person needs restoration as an individual, but we per se may not need to get back together based on whatever the details were that led to that breakup.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, can I just give a little bit explanation, because this is something I teach on, is identifying the why behind an emotion is important, because you can be feeling like you want to get with someone, but you don't know exactly what it is. Because when you lose someone in your life, any loss, whether you build a relationship long-term, short-term, if you have experienced abandonment for so long, or oftentimes in your life, when you lose someone, you have the tendency to want this person back in your life. And it's almost like an addiction. When you let go of something, you say, okay, I'm not returning to it, but you go back to it because it's a feeling inside. And you have to understand, what is that void that is making you want to go back to that person? What is that feeling that you really are feeling? Because maybe you're wanting to go back because you haven't fully grieved. There's different levels to grief. And if you go back to this person because you feel sad, you feel lonely, you feel depressed because you feel like this person was feeling a part of your life, you need to go back and realize, what was it? What is it that I'm wanting from this person? Is it really purpose that needs to be fulfilled? And if you know that this person wasn't fulfilling a purpose in my life, I'm going back because it's some type of tendency, some type of hunger or desire inside of you. Maybe it's because, this person gives you affection and you haven't felt affection in your life like you once did as a child, and you're missing that. It can just be an attachment style. You have this tendency to want to attach yourself to people because they give you company and comfort. But that's why it's important for you to understand these emotions, so that when you go to God and you pray to God about why this feeling is, He will show you and help you to heal from any broken wounds that you have inside of you. And I just feel like, as women, men, understanding who you are and understanding the feelings, identifying the feelings that you're feeling inside is important as you're breaking apart, closing a relationship, building a relationship. What is that real feeling inside of you? Because again, it's like with love. You can say that you love somebody, but you can just be lusting after them. And if you don't understand the difference, you'll continue to go after that same man or that same woman because you think that you love them, but really inside of you, it's lust. And that lust is trying to gratify a desire just to fulfill a void in your heart that you never healed from.
It's trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding.
It's trauma bonding. And I can't stress enough that just because you're a believer, or you believe in God, you don't believe in God, but just saying you believe in God is not going to take the urge and the desires. Your flesh has these urges and desires. Once again, like I said, it's legitimate. But we can't sugarcoat that. We can't act like we're not feeling these things, feeling these emotions. Come to terms with them. God, I feel like this. I have a burning desire to kiss, to hug, to feel, And then, as we're honest, we can begin to receive grace to move forward, because some of us fall short to this. And I want to talk to, as we're wrapping this up, I want to say this to a woman that's watching or a woman that's listening, and you have fell short and you have succumbed to your desires in an illegitimate way. You are still loved. You are still God's favorite. You are still able to fulfill your purpose, you're able to fulfill your destiny. That shortcoming, that mistake does not define who you are. And don't allow the enemy to have that shame and try to manipulate you with it to say that you're null and void now. You can't be the great things that God has called you to because of what you did last week, last month, last year. No, you're still one of his favorites because his mercy is new every day. His love is new every day. And what you see, let God define you when you fall, not the enemy defines you. Because if the enemy defines you when you fall, he wants to keep you down. God defines you when you fall to pick you up and put you right back on the path, and so you can pursue your purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I share with you a story real quick? This could probably be
Sure.
relatable to your audience.
Sure.
Because you were talking about definition, sometimes we go through breakups because God is trying to show us a different side of our identity. And back in 2015, I was engaged. We were engaged for about maybe a year or so. My ex-fiance broke up with me. He didn't tell me why. He was just like, I just can't do this. Maybe he couldn't describe or kind of explain his feelings. At the time, I was broken, beaten, destroyed because my everything was like, this guy's my purpose. I mean, we look alike together. We look good together, right? Like everything seemed like it was working out, but it suddenly came to an end. And at that breakup, it took me about a month to surrender to the tug and pull God was trying to pull me into to redefine myself. And I had to, God brought me to his word and showed me how in Nehemiah, when they were rebuilding the wall, I can't remember the whole story, but it was a rebuilding stage of my life because of that breakup. We were together for 3 years, but a lot was invested in that relationship. And once we broke up, God redefined me. It was like he was showing me, Arnesjah, I'm showing you another side of you. Like, don't get your identity so wrapped up in this relationship that you can't do your purpose, you can't fulfill your dreams. Like, that was just a season of your life where I was using whatever. He can use anything for our good, but God was showing me my identity, and that's when things started to take off for me in another level of my life, where I came to know who Arnesjah is. I came to know the love of God, the unconditional love of God, not just saying, oh, I love God, I serve God just from religious standpoints, but to really build a relationship with God, because the next relationship, whoever I'll be married to, this firm foundation is going to be it's going to be firm.
Yeah.
Because I've now discovered a side of me, and I'm not going to let that relationship or that broken relationship to destroy me and stop me from being who God called me to be. Now it's time to get yourself up, find out what is Arnesjah love. That's all it took me months and now years to really just discover more and more of myself. So if there's anybody out there who is going through a breakup right now, you're like, how do I get myself back together? The biggest part is to surrender to God, because surrender to the process, because God is trying to help you to redefine yourself and understand who he says you are versus what man or that man says you are.
Wow.
So that was the biggest lesson I learned in that breakup.
No, that's awesome. Wow. Yo, you closed it on the head. Man, Arnesjah, I thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Do you got anything cooking up or anything that's coming up that you want to share with the people before we go?
Yes, I do. So I'm all about identity, like I said, and I have an identity shift community. Identity shift is all about you knowing how to shift your life so that you can become a better version of yourself and live the life that God says you deserve. And Identity Shift is a movement where I help people on 30 days to shift their identity, shift their lifestyle, and shift into becoming a better version of themselves. So you can, to find out more about it, you can visit arnesjah.com. That's ARNESJAH.com, or you can follow me on Instagram under Arnesjah, ARNESJAH.
Well, there you have it, beautiful people. If you're single, dating, married, and you're looking to have tools to build and have a healthy relationships, I want you to tune into the Value TV show. I'm Jamel Jackson, your relationship mechanic. I'm out of here. Peace.